Imagine a sauropod giant that once stood tall and weighed dozens of tons. What would it be like if it shrank to the size of a horse? We usually picture dinosaurs as colossal creatures with overwhelming strength and an intimidating presence. Yet in the late Jurassic period, fate composed a delicate and tender tale on the lands of modern Europe, defying all common knowledge. Tonight, sit by the flickering fire and let us wander through this gentle story. This is the life of Europasaurus. It is one of the most astonishing discoveries in paleontology, a life form carrying the genes of mighty giants, confined to a tiny island. When we study rock layers dating back 150 million years, we find no brutal fights or desperate struggles for survival. Instead, we see an ancient paradise embraced by calm waters. Let us follow this gentle giant, who has lost its massive build, and see how it spent its days at a leisurely pace on this forgotten island, finding peace and comfort. This is the kindness evolution granted to life, a fairy tale from the Cretaceous that soothes the soul deep into the night. The story begins with the gradual separation of lands. The ancestors of Europasaurus were true titans. Back then, the vast continent they inhabited slowly split apart. As sea levels rose, endless plains were divided and swallowed by the ocean, turning into a chain of green isles scattered across the blue waters. These are the islands of the Lower Saxony Basin, a peaceful yet inescapable home chosen by destiny for Europasaurus. Cut off from the mainland by the sea, the giants, once used to roaming for miles and grazing across entire forests, faced an unprecedented crisis. The islands were far too small to sustain creatures of such immense size, and fresh water grew scarce. It was a critical moment, a choice that would shape their future. If they kept their gigantic bodies, their species would eventually die out due to resource depletion. Faced with the changes of nature, these isolated creatures showed remarkable wisdom and adaptability. They did not fight fiercely over limited food, nor did they descend into destruction like predators. Deep within their bodies, ancient growth genes slowed down. This phenomenon, known as island dwarfism, became the unique survival wisdom of Europasaurus, born out of scarcity. Tens of thousands of years passed with the constant ebb and flow of the tides. The magic of nature finally showed its gentle result. When new generations opened their eyes in the island's coniferous forests, they were no longer the towering giants of their ancestors. An adult Europasaurus measures merely 6.2 meters in length. A human could even reach out and touch its back while standing on the ground. About the size of a horse and weighing roughly 1 ton, they seemed tiny among sauropods, most of which weighed dozens of tons. Yet this smaller form became their greatest advantage. They only needed dozens of kilograms of leaves and ferns each day. The island that once felt cramped to their ancestors turned into a land of abundance for them. Best of all, the surrounding ocean kept enormous carnivorous dinosaurs away. There were no lurking enemies, no terrifying roars breaking the night, no traces of blood to disturb their sleep. Europasaurus lived as carefree hermits. They drank from misty streams at dawn and wandered through soft soil under the warm sun in the afternoon. They retained the slow gait of long-necked giants, but their steps no longer shook the earth, moving with the lightness and grace of deer. Sheltered by the sea, they dwelled in utter seclusion, as if time itself had stopped on this quiet island. Free from natural enemies and survival pressure, their daily life was like a soothing pastoral poem. If you sat on the coastal rocks of the island one afternoon in the late Jurassic, you would witness a heartwarming scene. Groups of adult Europasaurus roamed among low cycads alongside their young, feeding leisurely. Their necks had shortened but remained elegant, easily reaching the tender fruits atop shrubs. The hatchlings were no bigger than cats, with large curious eyes. They tumbled playfully on piles of fallen leaves and let out soft chirps from time to time. Here, there was no life or death chase, no brutal survival of the fittest. With balanced resources and no predators, they lived in harmony, often nuzzling one another to show friendliness. Winds blew in from the Atlantic, sweeping across clean beaches and carrying salty moist air deep into the woods. The Europasaurus would pause to feel the breeze brush their gray-green skin dotted with pale yellow spots. Their eyes held no ferocity of hunters nor fear of prey, only pure tranquility nurtured by long-term safety. Having let go of the need for overwhelming power, they lived a life straight out of a fairy tale. On this remote island, these small creatures proved another way to survive, gentle, restrained and enduring. No safe haven can stay untouched by the great changes of the planet. Though Europasaurus enjoyed peace on the island, the ecological balance that had lasted for millions of years was eventually broken. As the Cretaceous period drew near, crustal movement reshaped the world once more. Sea levels dropped drastically over time. Deep straits grew shallow and finally turned into sand and rock land bridges reconnecting the islands to the mainland. The natural barrier of the sea was gone, exposing the peaceful island to the harsh laws of nature. One misty morning, huge fierce figures appeared on the far side of the land bridge. Large theropod dinosaurs had crossed over, setting their greedy eyes on this undisturbed land. It was a devastating shock for Europasaurus, who had never encountered predators. They were too stunned to run, for the concept of danger did not exist in their racial memory. Frantic footsteps echoed through the quiet coniferous forests, and clear streams were stained with blood. Gentle life was ruthlessly challenged, and the fairy tale of Europasaurus faced bitter reality. They fled across the narrow island, hiding deep in dense woods, silently bearing the heavy price brought by fate. Trapped in the darkest days, Europasaurus displayed touching perseverance and sorrow. As invaders seized their territory and turned their once peaceful home into a hunting ground, these mild little giants still guarded the dignity of their kind in their own way. They began to move under the cover of night. Familiar with every corner of the island, they made their homes among jagged canyons and damp marshes. In the quiet hours after dark, when large carnivores slept off their meals, the Europasaurus would emerge from the shadows. They gathered around the last unpolluted springs and huddled closely together, drawing warmth from one another in the cruel world. They endured silently without cries or resistance. They watched forests wither and companions disappear, yet they kept wandering slowly as long as there was grass to eat and water to drink. Living in the transition between the Jurassic and Cretaceous, they carried deep resilience. They had lost the massive strength of their ancestors and possessed no sharp weapons to fight back, but their hearts remained calm after millions of years of peace. Even when hunger and danger pushed them to the edge, they maintained their graceful slow steps, leaving behind a dignified final silhouette amid the ruins of fate. Time buried this island fairy tale from over 100 million years ago beneath thick sediment. When the last Europasaurus lay down peacefully facing the sea on a bed of fallen leaves, rising tide submerged the land bridge once again. The island became isolated once more. Memories of these small, gentle creatures turned into fossils as minerals permeated their remains. Eons later, paleontologists uncovered these ancient limestone rocks in German quarries and brought this long-lost miracle back to light. Their fossils remind us that even the brutal prehistoric world held such tender and wonderful corners. After walking through the life of this little giant tonight, we learn that small size never means insignificance. To reconcile with limitations is the greatest wisdom. The Jurassic Island has long sunk beneath the waves, yet those creatures wandering under the moonlight seem to whisper to us across time. Listen to the wind and the crackling fire. Can you hear the soft rhythm of waves lapping the ancient shore? Let go of all weariness. Close your eyes and sleep soundly, just like these carefree little giants living in a paradise without fear.